Welcome to my channel, fellow Beast Wars fans. My name is BeastMoJo, and I hail from Australia, and I have been a long-time fan of this show we like to call Beast Wars Transformers, which seems to have just grown in popularity beyond its 3 seasons. I'm not including Beast Machines, because that's more like a traumatic memory I'm trying to forget about. I guess we'll cover a bit of that on the channel too, but what I really wanted to do is just say, hey, I've been in the Beast Wars community probably since when the internet was first publicly released. So I'm talking way back in 1995, I believe. Was it 95 or 96 that the show actually first started airing? I think it might have been 96, 97, 98, kind of 3-season run that the show had. So prior to that, when I guess the internet had just been released publicly and we all had access to it, I had a dial-up connection, and for hours, maybe 3-4 hours, I would just look for all the latest sort of high-res Beast Wars screen caps and photos, like production photos and stills that Mainframe would release online, and then the fans would share. I would try to hop on the fan forums that was starting to take shape early on in the show's run, when I believe the initial mode of communication was through news groups, and then we started creating our own fan forums. I think the main place that I really posted at was a place called the Axelon Underground, if I'm not mistaken. I can't seem to find any trace of it anymore online. I've tried looking on the Wayback Machine too, but I don't know what its actual URL would have been, but there was quite an active, engaged community of fans, and I was very much just threw myself headfirst into that experience, and I guess I made a little bit of a name for myself in the community, chiefly I guess because I ran multiple websites myself, so I wanted to get into representing my fervent fandom for the show. And this resulted in me coming up with my first ever idea of, branding myself and creating content for myself for a show that I loved. And I came up with BeastMoJo's Beast Wars Sanctuary. That was the first website I ever created at all in my life. Might have been around 96, possibly 97 when I first got my first website online. I'll check the screen cap. There'll be a photo of it in this video. Suffice to say, I kind of kept building different websites. I had a basic one, I think it was with GeoCities initially. I used to find free website hosts that I could host better versions of my website on. So I was always trying to improve my ability to create web content. I downloaded Dreamweaver, and that was my main mode of creating my own layouts and really sort of diversifying the look of my website. And I think one of the prominent ones I had was on Zoom, which was XOOM, zoom.com. They used to offer free websites too. Either way, my point is that I was very much, my head was all into the Beast Wars universe, which, as we came to find, at least in the first season, was very much entangled and part of the original Transformers G1 narrative and story. It was very intricately woven into it. Of course, at some initial protests by old school fans when they first saw that their beloved Transformers were now transforming into hairy animals. But I think once the episode started and we got the characters, we even got nods to Starscream as early as like episode 2 or 3, like in that dream sequence with Cheetor. We even saw bits of Cybertron in there as well. So that was really because of the effort behind the scenes of the story editors and the producers and the writers. So I guess the heads of the body of Beast Wars were, of course, Larry DiTilio and Bob Forward, who really engaged with fans, and I think mainly tapped the narrative vein and history and lore of Transformers, which is very important. Mostly through Ben Yee. So I think his website's still up and running. He was always a big factor and a big force in the community. he ran a website that was bwtf.com, I believe. So inspired by Beast Wars, obviously, but it covered everything Transformers related, and probably still does. I think another website that was really big at the time was bigbot.com, which I think was a French website and probably gained more prominence during the Beast Machines era. I think they tended to get a lot of exclusive interviews with the story editors for that show. But overall, I threw my hat in the ring early on, and I guess BeastMoJo was a combination of me being a big Beast Wars fan. Obviously, it had to be a Beast kind of themed nickname. It was my very first handle that I'd ever come up with online or anywhere. And Mojo, because I guess my older brother at the time, he was obsessed with using the word mojo at the end of his emails. So for whatever reason, he'd say mojo out as like a call sign. And so I'm like, oh, that's cool, I'll steal that. And I came up with BeastMoJo. And then every time I would post online on the forums, my exit message or my signature would always be mojo out with an exclamation mark. And I believe out was in caps. And the way BeastMoJo is actually spelt, it was like capital B for Beast, but then I think it was like capital M and capital J for Mojo, or possibly just capital M. So yeah, that's just a brief outline of my history with Beast Wars. And I guess I got started in high school, right? 96, that's when I started high school. I first came home because I used to walk home from school at that point. It was, maybe like a 15-20 minute journey. But I came home one afternoon at around 3:30ish, 4 o'clock, which is usually when we'd finish or get home. And there was some random cartoon on TV. And it was clearly CGI, it was computer animated. You didn't see much of that anywhere on TV. In fact, it was only like the second or third fully computer animated TV show in history at that point. And I think the first was by the same studio as Mainframe Studios, who did Reboot, and that was maybe maybe a year or two earlier, which featured some of the same cast, I think, same voice cast. So I came home and witnessed this show, and I was like, what the fuck is this? What is this? I'm fully intrigued. I think I entered maybe about 10 minutes into episode 1. It was the actual episode 1 of season 1. There was no advertising around it, no fanfare, it just kind of appeared. So I quickly I watched the rest of it, obviously. I just kept watching. I was very much already drawn into the world and to the aesthetic and to what they're trying to do. And I really thought the voice acting and everything, the music, the mood, the scenes, everything just worked. And it grabbed your attention. And it kept my attention for like the next 20-something years. So probably more than that. What was that, 96? It's been, we're coming up on it's over 25 years now. I think they already celebrated like a 25th anniversary recently. So holy shit, it's been a while. But that was my introduction. I then parlayed that interest into figuring out what this online space is in terms of, nerd communities and fan communities, and how we get together and how we communicate, how we express our love for a particular intellectual property. And there's so many out there that we grew up with, that we still continue to express adoration for because they was just so well made. And there's modern iterations of that too, obviously. We stand for a lot of modern shit. Over the last 20-30 years, we've had a lot of quality stuff. It's just we've seen a bit of a decline in the last maybe 5, I'd say give it 5 to 10 years max. A lot of decline in the quality of storytelling, in the level of investment that creatives have in their own properties or what they're working on. Whereas in the past, you had dudes like Bob and Larry who were kind of just given this responsibility by Hasbro, going in almost completely cold to the Transformers universe. I mean, there's plenty of interviews out there with them. I might even try and, splice in some clips just to make this a little bit more interesting, so it's not just me fucking talking for like half an hour. But they themselves were like, yeah, we had to get up to speed, and we quickly realized there was a built-in fan base already because, Transformers was kind of a big deal in the 80s. I believe it started in 84 initially. I'm not too sure, but it was like mid-80s with G1, and then they obviously had the movie that came out as well. That was huge. And then that continued, I believe. I think there was some animated iterations of it later on as well, but it kind of died down for a while unless you counted like maybe the anime versions. I think there were some versions, in Japan and shit that were still popping. But it wasn't really till Beast Wars came around in the mid-90s that it kind of not only reawakened, I think, Transformers fandom to that fever pitch level. I think it honestly, truly, objectively legitimized the entire Transformers franchise and universe as a proper sci-fi epic. The show still plays really well. It's not aged much. The humor is still humorous. The character dynamics are still dynamic. The character growth and the journeys that they all go on are still somewhat profound, even though they had to, make it a bit more kid-friendly in the third season and have a bit more sort of cartoon hijinks happening. There was some serious shit going on in this show, and it treated its story with respect. Bob and Larry put in the hard yards to connect with the audience, the original fans, and figure out where this show sits in the overall universe of Transformers narrative and story. That is what's missing from current modern day entertainment, is that level of investment. You need to go spelunking into an existing IP to really gauge what is this thing you have now? What's it supposed to mean in the overall picture, and where does it fit? Yes, we know it's being driven by a company who wants to sell toys. We all get that. This is spearheaded by the company who owns the rights to the actual concept and to the characters. And then the creatives are there just to sort of help, flesh them out and make them real life sort of characters that kids can fall in love with and then go buy their toys. So it's a symmetry there. We don't mind being part of that. We don't mind being a cog in that corporate cycle. We know they just want to make money. But there is a way to do that while also giving the fans with an existing or pre-existing fan base for their property that they love, there's a way of still giving them what they need, which is continuity with respect to what came before. So Beast Wars did this quite perfectly. And this is probably one of the reasons it still resonates today, is that it didn't actively go out of its way to take a giant shit onto the original G1 fans, who had rightly expressed concerns over the changes that the Transformers had made, which I think was quickly explained away with logic. So Transformers go to different planets. They are more than meets the eye. Sure, they're mechanical, but they have the ability to take on the guises of whatever the dominant species are. So if they're in a modern era and they got planes and trains and jets and shit all over the place, they're going to go for those machines as the choice to transform into. Whereas you go into prehistoric Earth, there are no mechanical sort of monsters to change into as your alter. You're going to go for, I guess, existing, or I guess in the case of some of the dinosaurs that are, our Beast Warriors have changed into, they are extinct creatures who used to be, dominant on the Earth. So they can go for either one. So they've gotten through the fossils, they've scanned fossils and been able to recreate forms, or go and be just whatever the existing forms are on the planet at the given time. That made sense. It even carried over, this is one of the things I'll give kudos to for Beast Machines, because it's otherwise a giant clusterfuck of a show. They did one thing right, which was, okay, so they tried to explain how Botanica existed and I can't even fucking say that name without cringing, or hearing Rat Trap's voice saying that name. Jesus Christ. So Botanica said the same thing. It's like, well, how did you become a plant transformer, like a living plant? That's your alternate form, right? It's like, well, our exploration ship went to a planet where the dominant life form were plants and they were alive, and so in order to be a robot in disguise, she disguised herself as one of them. I'm like, okay, I'm down with that concept. So I guess once that was nailed in, it was then a matter of how the story was going to be told. Was it going to be a quality sort of endeavor? But I think the way that it was made, the way that it was written, as a serious tale, and you can tell that the writers actually dig the characters they're writing about. So lovingly brought to life by the amazing voice cast, who to this day are still going to cons, still going to online meets, but I guess going back to live cons and shit. Like, they are out there every year, representing Beast Wars. Even, I think, themselves are just like, I can't believe we're still doing this. Like, this has been like over 25 years now. Like, there's still like a hunger for this. People are still wanting to meet the voice cast and treat them like royalty, because like they played such a huge part in forming that childhood memory for us. But it was a quality affair. This is why it stands the test of time. It's really, there really is a adult story occurring in this series over 3 seasons. It had to be peppered with some childish shit, but I'd say specifically in season 2, there were more than enough sexual innuendos being dropped like left and right. There was some intense stuff happening. It was violent. It was as violent as you could expect it to be for a kids show, although it was technically rated PG in Australia, which is parental guidance recommended, right? It was quite intense. There were relationships forming between, Maximal and Predacon. There were shifting loyalties. There was some interesting dynamics within both groups in terms of like power politics. Characters trying to find their place in the world. Like, the entire Dinobot arc was masterful, honestly. Like, from season 1 to where he ended up in, season 2 with the absolute like tear-jerking episode Code of Hero, which everyone in Transformers fandom can point to that episode and be like, that's how good this shit can be. This is the emotional resonance that we can reach with a story about intelligent robots that transform into things. Like, that's the ability of good writing and good storytelling. Thus, we have the absolute great 3-season run of Beast Wars, although I will be a bit more critical of Season 3. I always have been a little bit more critical of Season 3 because of its lack of wanting to take a chance and be a little bit darker. The story, I think, demanded to take a step up in terms of maturity as the characters matured, and the stakes got even more intense. But as we'll get into some point down the track, I think the behind-the-scenes politics of the company stepping in and being like, yo, you're going a bit too far with the dark stuff. Like the script Dark Glass, we're going to get into shit like that, where there would have been an episode in Season 3 where Rat Trap, linking back to the episode in Season 2 where Dinobot mysteriously downloads something into the Axelon, right? He has a little red cable that shoots out of his hip and downloads something onto the Axelon. We never know what it is. So they're supposed to pick up on that thread in Season 3. Rat Trap's supposed to take that, which is actually a backup of Dinobot's, core memory, I guess, his consciousness. Not his spark necessarily, just everything that makes him who he is. He takes that and he hunts Dinobot 2, the Transmetal 2 Dinobot that Megatron has created as a slave. And basically tries to recover the original Dinobot within the new Dinobot shell. I think he ultimately fails, but then that's what's supposed to spark Transmetal 2 Dinobot reawakening in the very last episode of the series of Season 3, and then helping to defeat Megatron and save the Maximals, save the universe. Shit like that. Like, season 3 was such a missed opportunity to really go up a level. And in a lot of ways it did. Towards the end, it had to take the story as seriously, because in the finale it was just like, you can't fuck around anymore. We can't squeeze in any more scenes of Megatron, comically spinning around like fucking Tasmanian devil and then falling off a cliff and poofing onto the ground like a Wile E. Coyote. You know what I mean? Like, we don't want to see that shit in the first place. But the fact that it was inserted unwillingly, you can tell, like, it would have made the animators and the writers also fucking cringe to shove that into a scene that demanded to be a bit more serious. So I got a bit of criticism of season 3 coming up, but overall, it's an epic show. I love every season for different reasons, and I've been a long time fan. I rewatch the show quite regularly, although it's been a little while. You grow up, you have children, you get a mortgage, all that shit happens. You get less and less time, but the love for the actual work that was put in, that hasn't aged much. It's still quite fresh and in the forefront of our minds as fans. What's even more interesting is that the Transformers have since become a multi-billion-dollar live-action franchise. For better or worse, the quality of the films is, not the greatest. But it is never... I'm always awestruck by the effects. Like, yeah, it can be hard sometimes seeing who's doing what. It's a bit of a mishmash of gears and parts sometimes when they're fighting. But overall, the live-action depiction of Transformers is pretty badass. Like, the way they were able to pull that off in, 5 fucking movies. 6 if you count Bumblebee. It's pretty amazing. I actually recently went back and rewatched the first 5. I didn't watch number 1. I've seen that too many times. But I watched 2 through to 5. Bumblebee I didn't need to rewatch. I liked it quite a bit when I first saw it. But they took a bit of a break finally, and they were figuring out where we're going to take the franchise next. And everyone in their heads, in my head, I'm like, it's got to be Beast Wars. They haven't tapped that vein yet. And there's a big vein to tap. The 90s fans of that show who are now older and decision makers in households who pay for shit, yeah, they'll go see it. I'll definitely go see it. I think it's probably going to be a shit show like it usually is. I think they missed an opportunity to invite the original cast back. I thought that kind of sucked. I mean, they got Cullen back to do Optimus Prime in every fucking film. Why not get Gary Chalk to come back and do Optimus Primal for the live action? He'd kill it. I mean, he's much older now, sure, he's getting on a bit, but I think he'd still put on a pretty good performance, as would the rest of the cast. So it was a missed opportunity, but I'm still looking forward to it. It's I believe the film is called Rise of the Beasts, as it should be. Everything's a rise or something like that. There's always a rise somewhere happening. So that's going to be pretty fucking interesting when it does come down the pipeline, I think next year. I think it's a 2023 release. Alongside, I think, a second film in the Bumblebee sort of timeline as well. So there's supposed to be either a Bumblebee sequel or this new one, which was a Beast Wars movie, but they're going to do both in the one, I believe. So they're both going to link up. I think they take place in the Bumblebee continuity, so it's actually in the past. So I think it takes place prior to the first Transformers live action film as well. It's going to be interesting, man. That's where it's really going to be, I think I'm really going to get into the commentary once that shit comes out, because as I just described, I'm a big ass Beast Wars fan. So I'm going to have a lot to say about it when it does come down. It does get released. Outside of that, this channel, so I thought there was no other name to put to this channel than the original name that I had, and to reclaim my very first internet handle as BeastMoJo. The content you should see might mirror some of the basic shit that we all used to do on Beast Wars websites, right? You get your free website, you have your basic sections, which would be like character profiles, weaknesses, strengths, episode guides, episode lists, reviews, fan fiction. I participated in the fan fiction as well. I think I still got about 3 or 4 stories that I'd written, or basically whole episodes that would take place in different parts of 3 seasons of Beast Wars. I should probably post some of those up when I get a chance. But yeah, so it's going to be almost like the old school approach. I'm going to get a little bit into the nitty gritty of each character. And I'm going to do a watch party kind of deal where I'm just going to rewatch the entire series with commentary and then break down each episode. So, because I'm a wordy motherfucker, and you can see that from this intro, it's already gone for like almost 28 minutes now, 28 minutes. It's going to be thorough, right? And I just want to touch base with any of the fans that are still out there. You know, I really want to just engage with y'all and reminisce a little bit, and then kind of look to the future. I guess the other thing we could touch on is there is just a recent wave of Beast Wars related media that's been coming out. I know there was the trilogy of what was that? The Netflix Transformers series. That was a sort of like 3 seasons worth. I think the last one was Kingdom, right? Before that was Earthrise, and then the first one was like set on Cybertron when they were still fighting each other. So the OG Transformers meet up with the Beast Warriors in the 3rd season of that show, which I think was earlier this year, might have been last year. Can't remember now, but it was epic to see our beloved characters actually pop up in some gorgeous looking animation, but some horrendous voice acting. So that's been the big disappointing nature of what modern media is like. They'll bring back your favorite shit, but they'll fuck it up in some profound way. So it's like, I'm glad you're back, but I'm disappointed at what they've done to you. my beloved Beast Wars. Like, what the fuck did they do to Megatron's voice? They gave Megatron Scorponok's voice in that. Anyway, I'm not even going to get into it right now. We'll break that shit down too. I might just actually review that, and we'll get into that from a Beast Wars fan perspective. One thing I never actually touched were the Beast Wars comics, I believe on IDW. I think there was a series on IDW. That I might actually get into just so I can help round out what the continuity looks like. Because I think a lot of the stuff that happens in the comic books might be canon. And I need to sort of get up to speed on that. So there might be some reviews there. Beyond that, I got some wacky shit kind of lined up. Sort of Beast Wars dubs. I want to do like 3 seasons of Beast Wars, like 10 episodes each. Maybe each episode's like about 4 or 5 minutes long. Redubbed, re-edited, recut to be completely something different. Yeah, just because I kind of want to fuck with the footage and try my hand at the voices, really. But yeah, so welcome to the channel. I'm hoping to build this into, you know, a Beast Wars sanctuary, somewhere you can come and actually reminisce, think about all the good times, and think about what's important to you about this particular series, because it was huge, and it still is huge. People love this show. It's won awards, people. Like, it was quite well written, well acted. The voice actors would come into a room and actually act it out like a radio play, like they did with, I think, Batman the Animated Series was famous for that. You get much more engaging performances, you know, from people who are in the same room together, reacting to each other. I think that might have been because of the influence of Andrea Romano. I'm going to check the credits on that. I think she was... No, it wasn't. It was Susan Blue. Sorry. So Sue Blue was, I think, the voice... kind of, she was the one putting all the voice stuff together with the voice cast and the talent and getting them to record and really directing them. But same kind of concept as what Andrea Romano was doing for Batman. Yeah, just get everyone in the room, like an old-timey radio play. Get everyone bouncing off each other. So you get a more naturalistic performance. And that carries through in why I think we love Beast Wars so much. There is a natural sort of flow to the way they all communicate and talk. You can say part of that was because of the restrictions of the technology. You couldn't move too fast. So if you notice season 1, outside of the action scenes, when everyone's just chilling, moving around in their ships, talking, it's at a languid, kind of slower pace. Even dialogue between characters. It's kind of slow. So I love that first season because of that. Season 2 got more hyped up, more intense. The animation got improved, so things were more dynamic and moved quicker. And then season 3 was again a bit of a mixed bag, but animation-wise, it was getting better and better. And you know, I feel like I'm gonna hate myself for saying this, but this is the second thing I'll say that's good about Beast Machines. There hopefully won't be many positives for me to talk about. There are some, but not too many. The animation of Beast Machines is unreal. If we had a decent story that didn't completely bastardize our Beast Wars characters and just fuck up the narrative royally in Beast Machines, we would have had another classic on our hands. It would have been a worthy 2-season edition bookend to the Beast Wars saga, which ultimately that's what it was. It was basically Beast Wars season 4 and 5. Just it was without the original crew. I don't know why they got rid of Larry and Bob, but clearly the new guys didn't really do much of a good job. Although they had a good pedigree. I'm pretty sure Bob Skir or Marty Eisenberg, I think they both worked on the Batman animated series, so it's not like they were bad writers. I just think they didn't know what the fuck to do with these characters and where to take them and how to write them and how to do a show that wasn't formulaic every fucking episode, that actually didn't destroy the lore as they thought. I think they were being respectful of the lore, and they got in some experts on Transformers to help stick with the lore and bring up things like Vector Sigma and shit. But in the meantime, they were absolutely shitting all over everything Beast Wars helped create. I think that was my big problem with that show at the end of it. However, the animation was unbelievable. It was too cool for school. Like, the Cybertron they created was gorgeous. It was perfectly cyberpunk, as it should be. And that's kind of what you wanted to see, right? And it was going to be epic. And not to get too deep into this now, because I will review Beast Machines, God help me. No, I'm going to have to watch it all over again. No. So what Beast Machines was actually originally going to be was a show called Beast Hunters, where the premise we ended up with was flipped. So the Maximals come back to a Cybertron the exact same way. There's some time portal shenanigans where they get Megatron gets knocked forward ahead of time, so he has time to arrive at Cybertron first, establish his dominance, and then the Maximals come through on the shuttle and then get shot down. All that still happened, or would happen, except they wouldn't be transforming into these ghoulish techno-organic forms. It would be the opposite. Megatron would have now made... because he was messing with organic technology and alien technology on Earth. He was all about that shit. So it was in character for him to come home and then try to impose his techno-organic, fervor onto the entire planet. And so he kind of dominated, took over, and now Cybertron's kind of overrun with too much organic matter, as opposed to the clean technological sort of standard that they're used to, and that's their nature. They're machines. They're just sentient machines with a soul and a spark. And then it would be the Maximal's job to then take on traditional G1-ish forms. So they would purely be like tanks and jets and cars. They would be all vehicle-related alternate modes. They would actually be shedding their beast sides and then going more for the OG, Autobot transformation style. You're an automated vehicle robot. Guess that's what Autobot would extrapolate to. But you know what I mean. It was completely the fucking opposite of what we got. So for whatever reason, they switched it around and they turned it into Beast Machines, where now the mechanical was like evil. You can't be purely machine. You have to be techno-organic. You got to embrace the organic as well. Why? I don't fucking know. Because the fucking Oracle deemed it so, or who the fuck knows anymore. It seemed like it was some ham-fisted environmental message buried in there that was driving the stupid story that we got. But what a wasted opportunity that I will get more in depth with as we go along in the channel. Trust me, that one's going to be an interesting listen. All right, and it's probably going to get me a bit more criticism than most other videos I'll put out, but I don't give a shit. Beast Machines does not play well over the course of time as Beast Wars does. Like I said at the very start of the video, BM does not hold up while BW does. Anyway, that's probably a bit more than I was wanting to chat about for an intro video, but that's me. This is BeastMoJo. I'm going to be coming at you regularly with content, possibly some from the archives that I've kept for like the last 30 years. But yeah, don't be shy, y'all. Come down to the sanctuary. Let's chop it up about all things Beast Wars. And hope we all have a good time and get to catch up with maybe some people I haven't seen for 30 years. If anyone recognizes the name BeastMoJo from the Axelon boards, yeah, that's going to be the ultimate fucking trip out to actually catch up with some of those peeps. But that's it for now. I'll catch up with all of you soon. Mojo out.